Welcome, everyone, to another chilling Reddit horror story. Tonight, I've got something deeply unsettling to share, something that still haunts me to this day. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare for a tale that might just keep you up at night. This happened to me. Imagine this. You're alone in an old, decrepit house, the kind of place where the air feels thick, almost alive, pressing against your skin. Every creak of the floorboards feels amplified. Each whisper of wind through the shattered window panes seems to carry secrets. The house looms around you, its cracked walls and sagging ceilings heavy with an eerie sense of presence. It's the kind of house where you swear the shadows have a life of their own, where the dim light from a single bulb flickers, painting jagged, ghostly shapes on the peeling wallpaper. The faint smell of mildew and damp wood clings to your nostrils. And as you step forward, there's a chill in the air that bites deeper than it should. And then it hits you, that undeniable sensation. Someone's watching. You freeze, your breath catching in your throat. Slowly, you turn, your eyes darting to every corner of the room. The silence hums loudly in your ears. The room is empty, just cracked walls and dusty furniture. Yet the feeling doesn't fade. It grows stronger, wrapping around you like an invisible hand. Is it your mind playing tricks on you? Or is there something here, hidden in the walls of this forgotten place? They say some houses hold on to their secrets, and this one is no exception. It's the kind of place where legends are born, stories whispered in hushed tones around campfires, meant to chill the blood and keep the curious away. Among these tales is one that stands out, a story more chilling, more sinister than the rest. The legend of the crack girl. She's not like the ghosts from movies. She doesn't float through walls or rattle chains. Her presence is subtle, her terror insidious. She lives in the cracks, those tiny, forgotten spaces where the light doesn't reach. A gap between the floorboards, the sliver of space beneath a door, the thin line where two walls meet. These are her domain. At first, she's almost invisible. You might catch a flicker of movement out of the corner of your eye, just enough to make you turn your head. But there's nothing there, just shadows and cracks. You convince yourself it's nothing, a trick of the light, maybe. But the feeling lingers, gnawing at the edges of your mind. Then, one day, you see her. Just for a second. A pale face, impossibly thin, with wide, unblinking eyes that seem to stare straight through you. Her lips are drawn back in what might be a smile, but there's no warmth in it, just hunger. And if you notice her, it's already too late. The crack girl doesn't attack outright. She doesn't need to. Instead, she plays a game, a twisted version of hide and seek. If you see her, she steps out of the cracks, her gaunt figure unfolding like something from a nightmare. Her voice is soft, almost childlike, as she invites you to play. "Find me," she whispers. It sounds innocent at first, even absurd. A ghost playing hide and seek. But this is no ordinary game. The rules are simple. You must find her before time runs out. If you win, she'll leave you alone. Or so she claims. But if you lose, losing isn't an option. Those who've dared to play have never been seen again. They say the crack girl drags her victims into her world, a dark, endless void where time ceases to exist. It's a place of endless whispers and eternal cold, a prison from which there is no escape. And here's the catch. Finding her doesn't mean you win. In fact, it's the last thing you want to do. Take the story of Jenna, a college student with a passion for urban legends. She loved scaring herself and her friends, always seeking out the next creepy tale. When she heard about the crack girl, she laughed it off as just another campfire story. But something about it intrigued her. One night, on a dare, Jenna and her friends decided to stay in an abandoned house, rumored to be haunted. It was the perfect setting: creaky stairs, broken windows, and cracks running through every wall. As the night wore on, the group huddled in the living room, telling ghost stories by the flickering light of a single candle. The air grew colder, and a strange stillness settled over the house. Then Jenna saw a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Her friends laughed nervously, brushing it off. But Jenna couldn't shake the feeling. Her eyes kept darting to the cracks in the walls, the spaces beneath the doors. And then she heard it. "Find me." The voice was soft, barely audible, but it sent a chill down her spine. She turned to her friends, her face pale. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" one of them asked, their laughter fading. Jenna didn't answer. She was already on her feet, her eyes scanning the room. The game had begun. At first, Jenna tried to ignore it, to convince herself it was just her imagination. But the voice came again, more insistent this time. "Find me." Her friends were oblivious, chatting and laughing as if nothing was wrong. But for Jenna, the room felt suffocating. She could feel the crack girl's presence, lurking just out of sight. Desperate to end the game, Jenna began searching. She checked the cracks in the walls, the gaps beneath the furniture, the slivers of darkness where shadows pooled. Her heart pounded as the minutes ticked by. And then she saw her. The crack girl was standing in the doorway, her thin frame outlined by the flickering candlelight, her head tilted to one side, and her unblinking eyes locked onto Jenna's. "You found me," she whispered. Jenna's scream pierced the night, but by the time her friends turned, she was gone. The room was empty, save for the faint echo of her scream and the dying flicker of the candle. Jenna was never seen again. Her disappearance became just another unsolved mystery. Her story whispered among those who dared to discuss the crack girl. Some say she was dragged into the cracks, into the void where the crack girl reigns. Others believe she's still there, trapped in the house, waiting for someone to take her place. And the house remains, standing like a sentinel against time, its cracked walls hiding secrets too terrible to tell. If you ever find yourself in an old house and you catch a flicker of movement in the corner of your eye, don't look. Don't listen to the whispers. And whatever you do, don't play the game. Because once the crack girl sees you, there's no turning back. At first, it was all fun and games. Jenna and her friends decided to explore the abandoned house on a dare. It was a decrepit old building on the outskirts of town, rumored to be cursed. The stories about the house were typical of small-town lore: strange noises at night, objects moving on their own, and unsettling whispers carried on the wind. For years, it had stood empty, its broken windows and peeling paint daring anyone to step inside. The group entered with their flashlights, casting long, shaky beams across the dusty floorboards. Every creak of the wood beneath their feet echoed ominously, but they laughed to mask their nerves. Jenna felt the tension in the air, but pushed it aside. She didn't want to be the one to chicken out. They explored room after room, joking about how haunted the place was. "Watch out for the crack girl," one of them said, mimicking a ghostly wail. The others burst out laughing, though their laughter sounded forced. Jenna laughed too, but her stomach churned. Something about the name unsettled her. The cracks in the walls seemed darker and deeper the longer they stayed. Jenna tried not to stare at them, but she couldn't help it. The jagged lines seemed to twist and shift when she wasn't looking, like veins pulsing with an unseen life. Out of the corner of her eye, she thought she saw movement, a flicker of pale white darting past the edge of her vision. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice trembling. See what? Her friend Matt replied, his flashlight darting toward the spot she was staring at. Nothing. Never mind, she muttered, shaking her head. But the unease lingered, growing heavier with each passing minute. As the night wore on, their laughter faded. The group grew quieter, their jokes replaced by an unspoken tension. Jenna felt as though the house itself was alive, watching them, listening to their every move. When Jenna saw the crack girl, it was too late. They were in the living room, about to leave, when she froze. A pale figure stepped out of the wall. She was thin, almost impossibly so, with skin as white as chalk. Her hair was stringy and black, hanging like a veil over her hollow face. Her eyes, dark and unblinking, locked onto Jenna's. Her lips curled into a slow, chilling smile. "Do you want to play?" the crack girl whispered. Her voice was soft, almost sweet, but it carried an undercurrent of malice that sent a chill down Jenna's spine. Jenna couldn't scream. She couldn't move. The air around her felt heavy, suffocating, as if the room itself was closing in. The last thing she remembered was the crack girl reaching out, her fingers long and claw-like, before everything went black. Hours later, Jenna's friends found her curled up in a corner, her body trembling and her eyes wide with terror. She was muttering incoherently, her words a jumble of shadows and whispers. "What happened?" Matt asked, shaking her gently. Jenna didn't respond. She couldn't speak of what she had seen. The memory of the crack girl's smile was burned into her mind, and every time she closed her eyes, she felt the icy touch of those long, pale fingers. Her friends dragged her out of the house and took her home, but Jenna was never the same. She stopped going out, avoided dark spaces, and jumped at the slightest noise. The cracks in her bedroom walls became a source of constant paranoia. She stuffed them with tissues and taped over them, but it wasn't enough. The crack girl's reach extended far beyond that abandoned house. The terrifying thing about the crack girl is that she's not bound to a single place. Unlike traditional ghosts or spirits, she can manifest anywhere as long as there's a crack to hide in. A slightly ajar door, the gap beneath a bed, the space between floorboards, these are her gateways. Reports of encounters with her have emerged from all over the world. A man living in a sleek, modern apartment began hearing faint giggles at night. The sound seemed to come from the cracks between his floorboards. A woman in a suburban home noticed shadows moving under her bed. The next morning, she found deep scratch marks gouged into her bedroom wall. A child playing in their room screamed in terror when a pale hand reached out from the gap between their toy chest and the wall. No one is safe. As her legend spreads, so does the fear. People have gone to extreme lengths to protect themselves. Some seal every crack and gap in their homes with caulk or duct tape, convinced that this will keep her out. Others refuse to be alone at night, afraid of what might emerge from the shadows when they're most vulnerable. But it's futile. The crack girl is patient. She doesn't need to rush. She watches. She waits. And when the time is right, she strikes. Experts in folklore have debated how to deal with her, but no one has definitive answers. Some believe acknowledging her existence gives her power, like a parasitic entity that feeds on fear. Others think ignoring her is the true mistake, that failing to acknowledge her presence makes you more vulnerable to her attack. There's only one piece of advice that everyone agrees on. Never look into the cracks. If you feel her presence, if you hear faint giggles, see shadows moving, or feel like you're being watched, don't let your gaze linger on the cracks. Don't give her a chance to meet your eyes. But even then, there's no guarantee of safety. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, late at night. The house settles, the walls creaking softly in the stillness. You glance around, your eyes falling on the tiny spaces where darkness pools. The gap under the door, the crack in the wall, the sliver of shadow between the closet and the floor. Are they empty? Or is something watching you from within? You might dismiss the feeling as paranoia, a trick of your imagination. But what if it's not? What if, at this very moment, she's there, her pale face hidden just out of sight, her dark eyes watching you with quiet, malevolent curiosity? She doesn't need to rush. She can wait. She always waits. And when the time comes, she'll step out of the shadows with a smile that chills your blood and a whisper that echoes in your mind. Do you want to play? The Crack Girl's legend has no definitive origin, no clear explanation. Some say she was a child who died tragically, her spirit lingering in the spaces where no one dared to look. Others believe she's a manifestation of collective fear, a creature born from humanity's primal dread of the unknown. The stories vary. Some claim she appears on foggy nights or during thunderstorms, and others insist she lurks in abandoned places, hidden away in the corners where the light doesn't reach. But her true nature doesn't matter. What matters is this: she's out there. The town square is eerily quiet at this hour. The streetlights cast long shadows that stretch across the cracked sidewalks, their lights flickering slightly. Jason walks briskly, his footsteps echoing on the deserted pavement. He glances around, a shiver running down his spine. The street seems too empty, too still. He can feel her presence, just beyond his vision, like a weight in the air. "Don't be stupid, Jason," he mutters to himself, shaking off the feeling. "It's just your imagination." But as he turns the corner, he stops short. A shadow moves in the alley to his right. It's brief, a quick flit of darkness against the concrete, but it's enough to make his heart race. He takes a step back, his eyes scanning the alley. There's nothing there. No one. "Must have been a cat," he tells himself, but his voice trembles. He quickens his pace, heading towards his car parked a few blocks away. He unlocks the door with shaky hands, almost dropping his keys. He gets in and locks the doors immediately. He can still feel her watching, lurking somewhere close. He checks the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her ghostly face staring back at him. But there's nothing. "Okay, Jason, just get home and lock the door. Everything will be fine," he says, his voice steadier this time. Jason starts the engine, relieved when it roars to life. He peels out of the parking lot, heading towards his apartment. As he drives, he can't shake the feeling that she's still there, following him, just out of sight. He glances at the cracks in the pavement, the dark spaces between buildings, and wonders how many places she could be hiding. "Stop it, Jason," he mutters, shaking his head. There's no such thing as the Crack Girl, but the doubt lingers, gnawing at him as he drives. What if she is real? What if she's waiting for him, just around the next corner? As he approaches his apartment complex, Jason notices a strange figure standing under the flickering streetlight. It's a girl, her face pale and gaunt, her hair long and tangled. She's dressed in tattered clothes, and she stands perfectly still, watching him with dark, hollow eyes. "Jesus, what the hell?" Jason says, his voice rising in panic. The girl doesn't move, just stands there, a ghostly silhouette against the night sky. Jason slams on the brakes, bringing the car to a screeching halt. He stares at her, his heart pounding. She doesn't look like anyone he knows. Her face is twisted in a strange, eerie smile, and her eyes are wide, unblinking. Are you the Crack Girl?" Jason asks, his voice barely a whisper. The girl tilts her head to the side, a slow, deliberate movement. Her smile widens, and she takes a step forward, closing the distance between them. "Yes," she says, her voice barely a breath. "Do you want to play?" Jason's hands grip the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white with fear. He tries to back away, but his car is boxed in by parked vehicles. The girl steps closer, her movements fluid and unnerving. Jason's mind races, trying to think of a way to escape, but there's no place to run. "Stay away from me," he yells, his voice breaking. But the girl doesn't listen. She keeps coming, her smile growing more sinister with each step. Jason throws the car into reverse, slamming on the gas. He speeds backwards, his tires screeching as he peels out of the parking lot. He doesn't stop until he's halfway across town, parked in front of his apartment building. He sits there, his chest heaving, his hands still shaking. He looks around, half expecting to see her standing in the shadows, watching him. But there's nothing. Just the empty streets and the distant sound of a siren wailing in the distance. Jason takes a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Maybe it was just a hallucination, a trick of the mind. But he knows better. He's heard the stories, the whispers of the crack girl, and he knows he's not the first to see her. He gets out of the car, still on edge. He locks the doors, then heads towards his building, his steps hurried. He's never felt so vulnerable, so exposed. He knows she could be anywhere, lurking in the cracks, the dark spaces between the buildings. As he reaches his front door, he turns to look back at the street. The streetlight flickers, casting long shadows across the pavement. For a moment, he thinks he sees her, a faint, shadowy figure just out of sight. He blinks, and she's gone. Jason shudders, feeling a cold chill run down his spine. He pushes open the door and steps inside, locking it behind him. He leans against the door, taking deep breaths, trying to shake off the fear. What if she really is out there? He thinks, his voice barely a whisper. What if she's watching me right now? He doesn't know the answers. He doesn't know if he wants to know. All he knows is that the crack girl is out there, waiting, always watching. And the next time he's alone, he'll be looking over his shoulder, checking every shadow, every crack, for a glimpse of her pale face, her hollow eyes, her sinister smile. If you're ever in this position, walking alone at night, or even in broad daylight, take a moment to observe your surroundings. Look at the cracks, the gaps, the dark places that seem too small to hide anything. And then ask yourself, are they empty? If you're lucky, the answer will be yes. But if you're not, you might hear a faint giggle or see a shadow that moves when it shouldn't. And if you're very unlucky, you'll see her pale face, her hollow eyes, her smile that promises a game you'll never forget. If that day comes, remember this story and pray you never find out how it ends. Thank you for listening to tonight's chilling tale. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button for more spine-tingling stories. And remember, stay safe, stay aware, and always trust your instincts. You never know what might be lurking, just out of sight.